entry-level positions start at 50,000 euros a year. So you can expect anywhere from 50,000 euros a year as a starting package to as high as 75, depending on, again, the field you're going into. Where any student, as long as they're enrolled in a German university, can apply for positions in private companies. And you start off as a working student. And once you're done with your working student time, it is very easy for companies, because they've invested a year or maybe 6 months in you, to convert that working student into a permanent job role. For example, the physics program in LMU, the acceptance rate tends to be upward of 40%, which means for every 100 applications, 40 of them get accepted, which is quite high. So most public universities, for almost 90% of the courses, are completely free. What that means is you do not pay tuition. You only worry about living in the country, which basically means you only pay for health insurance, your rent, and food.
You can use your JEE score to apply to a technical university in Germany.
For example, my university has an international office that provides German lessons.
Welcome to Evolving Being. In today's session, we have a very special guest, Spandan Pandya. Spandan is currently studying a master's in physics at LMU in Munich, Germany. And he's specializing, his work is at the intersection of physics and machine learning, and he focuses on complex systems. He's previously done his bachelor's in science from Ashoka University. And in today's conversation, we're going to discuss his journey in detail. So, welcome, Spandan.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. So, what we'll do today is, because you have such an interesting background, we're going to split the conversation in two parts. In the first part, we're going to look at your experience of just studying in India, which is why did you choose physics? How was your experience at Ashoka? How are you thinking about your career path? And then the second half, we'll move into where you are currently, just studying in Germany as an experience, the application process, the visa, different universities, coursework, opportunities after completing your graduation, and any words of wisdom that you have for people who may be navigating this career path. So I hope that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try
Perfect.
my best to help.
Yeah, of course. And I know you're going to do a great job because you've been so helpful also in the past, I've noticed. Okay, so let's start. I mean, if there's anything that I've missed in your introduction, anything you'd like to add or, share with the audience.
No, sounds good.
That's good. Okay, okay. Okay, so then let's start. Like, why did you choose physics? What got you interested in the subject?
So in India, like, we do put a lot of emphasis on people studying science, and it's always looked at this superior field. So the natural choice for my parents was, why don't you consider engineering? But from the very beginning, I enjoyed math quite a bit, and I enjoyed, like, looking at theory. So I felt that instead of engineering, something that was more scientific and pure in terms of research was something that I preferred. So I chose to do physics because I could solve problems in a more theoretical way.
Interesting, because in a world where we have everyone running after engineering and pursuing more professional courses, you chose to do an academic course, and not
Mhm.
much is known about, like, what the future prospects are in physics particularly. So it's gonna, I mean, it's interesting to see that you chose it, and then you came to Ashoka, you did your bachelor's in physics. Now, what was your coursework like? What were the subjects that you studied? Any favorites? Any good professors you recommend?
So I really enjoyed my time at Ashoka because it was very interdisciplinary. So I obviously enjoyed not only doing courses in physics, but also doing courses in history, literature, things like that, because Ashoka does have this foundation courses where you could do literature courses as well. From a purely, like, technical science aspect of it, I also enjoy doing courses with computer science involved in it. So I did this course in computational physics, where you write code to, actually simulate physical systems, and that was something that I found really interesting. And it's quite like a myth that people say that, physics is not it's just an academic field, because I felt that when I was doing these courses, I was able to solve quite a lot of practical issues, even though the focus was on the theory. So it's not like with an academic degree, you are lost in the industrial world.
Give me an example where you solved like a real life problem there.
So if you look at particle physics, you have, particles being exchanged. And this exchange of energy between particles is literally the same as people and governments exchanging bonds with one another. So if you're able to predict how a particular energy stabilizes to a point, you can also predict stock markets and how they would saturate at a particular price level. So the equations you use are exactly the same. And it's quite popular for physicists to give up physics altogether and become quantitative financial analysts.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. I mean, I remember when I was sitting in one of these international relations classes, we discussed how countries behave just like human beings. So, human psychology and the psychology at the level of leaders representing nations is more or less the same. So, I'm sort of reminded of that intersection when you connect finance with physics. That's very interesting. Well, then, so you had a great time at Ashoka, and then how are you thinking about your career path? I believe you did the Ashoka, the scholars, the YSP program as well, right?
ASP.
ASP, sorry. And then so you spent a fourth year, and how did you spend that year? What did you do?
So the fourth year is all about specializing in a field of research and writing a thesis. So I did mine in quantum mechanics, and I tried to look at this very specific property that certain atoms have, that they flip their spin. And I spent most of the time reading papers, and I was pretty sure that I wanted to get into research. So it was a good idea for me to look at research based programs and, cater my thesis towards the program I'm going to be attending after Ashoka. So I tried my best to do the research that is happening in other universities.
And so you applied for research. What happened as a consequence? Like, what were your options?
So generally, unfortunately, a lot of research is still based on government funding. So it's very important for people who are trying to get into research fields to look at what kind of grants are being offered by the governments across the world. So I applied to the US, thinking that it would be a good opportunity for me to do a PhD directly. But as it happened, there were a lot of funding cuts in the field I was looking at and laboratories I was looking at. So I did not end up getting a position in the US for a PhD. But Europe was relatively unaffected because of this. So I still ended up getting a master's position in Munich, which also does the research that I want to do. So it was quite important for me to balance these two aspects, just the funding aspect of it and, who is researching what.
So you did not consider India at all. I mean, it was always about going abroad.
So what happens often when you do programs like you do in Ashoka is it's a 4 year program where you do focus on research. But if you do a master's in India, a lot of master's programs in physics in India are still based on you learning concepts and doing courses. So in my fourth year, I was already sure that I was done with the coursework aspect of physics and I wanted to focus more on research, which is why I opted for programs outside of India. But if you're looking to apply for programs in India, there are also very nice programs in Ayuka or in Raman Research Institutes, which are often like, based on an integrated program where you do a 5 year program. First 2 years, you do a master, so you have a background and foundation, and the other 3 years you spend researching.
That's interesting. I mean, I can imagine because research funding in India is not well known. There aren't too many institutes focused on research as well. So it made sense to go abroad. And then when you were looking at Europe, what were your country preferences? And then how did you identify Germany as a destination?
So every time you're looking to apply to a new country, there are two things that you should definitely see, especially when you're looking at Europe. One is whether you can fit into the language and the culture there, because you're going to be spending a significant time of your life there, and it's quite difficult if you're not able to communicate and make friends. So that's one. And the other thing you should look at also is whether these programs are accepting of international students, because oftentimes European master's programs happen in certain specified languages or certain specified degree requirements, which Indian degrees don't often fit. So for me, the natural choice was the bigger European countries like Germany, France, and Italy, which not only recognize more international degrees, but all their master's programs happen in English.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I think the master's level, a lot of these programs happen in English. So, out of these three countries you mentioned, Germany, France, and Italy, what were some of the top universities that you were looking at?
So I was focusing mostly on universities that focus on science. So if you're looking at Germany, you have the Technical University of Munich, you have the LMU, which is Ludwig Maximilian University, where I am at right now. And you have something called the TU9s. So there are 9 technical universities which are reputed for sciences in Germany. If you're looking at France, you can look at uh, Paris Saclay University, which is PSL. Then University of Sorbonne is also considered to be quite reputable and accepting of internationals. Uh, in Italy, you have University of Bologna, University of Trieste. There's a very nice theoretical physics center in Italy called ICTP, which is also offering its own programs. So these are quite nice to look at. Switzerland is another option where you have EPFL, ETH Zurich, which are popular choices.
Mm. And how did you learn about this? Was it through professors who guided you, or was it your own research online?
So if you're looking at research based programs, it's always a tight knit circle between different academics. So it's good to look at what your professors have collaborated on or what projects they're involved in. So for me, I realized that first, a lot of my seniors in physics were already in LMU Munich doing research. So they could guide me and tell me the professors I should work with. And second, my own professors also had connections with these international programs. Uh, because often these big science projects are collaborative in nature. So they could put you in touch with professors who would be willing to take you as research assistants.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
where I would start.
Absolutely. I think that is spot on. A very good piece of advice that you're sharing is to always connect with seniors who are sitting in these universities because they've been there, they know the grind, and they can share real words of wisdom. So let's jump into the application process. I mean, what is an application for a master's in Germany entail? What all documents do you need to collect?
Yeah. So basically, in any European countries, there are 3 things that you definitely need. One is you need a motivation letter where you try to express yourself and your research abilities to the fullest. Then you need a CV which highlights all the projects you did. It's not so important to have been having bragging rights, but it matters more if you can cater your CV to what the program actually has to offer. And often these universities also ask for standardized tests. So, as far as Germany is concerned, many places accept the JEE exam, which is your traditional like exam that Indian engineering students give. Then they also accept other exams like the GRE. Uh, these are exams that you can give for being, for your academic courses to be validated. For students in India, your degrees need to be verified by an authority. So you also need something called the APS certificate if you're applying to Germany. So this is the German consulate issuing a certificate that verifies your degrees. And yeah, with these documents, you just fill out every form in the website and you're good to go.
Wonderful. So this is something that not everyone knows, which is you can use your JEE score to apply to a technical university in Germany. And very often we have students, there are only a few that will get through the courses that or the colleges that they want in India. The rest, majority, 90-95%, is feeling very lost about what to do next. So in case one is looking at moving abroad, one can use the results for applying to Germany. Um,
And something interesting about this JEE exams, them accepting it, is also that a lot of times, if you've done a good bachelor's program, you could also get a lot of these credits transferred from your bachelor's program. For example, I was required to do 60 credits of coursework in my master's, but I only needed to do 54 because six of them got recognized from my bachelor's because I had done a more advanced course than what they expected. So
Oh,
it's not like your Indian degrees are completely worthless and you only have to spend time, focusing on a foreign degree.
that's very interesting, and especially now after the new education policy, just the whole thing of the academic credits being swapped across universities in India is also coming up. So interesting, very interesting point to note. And what about the visa process? Is that easy or is it more complicated like the US?
So the visa process by itself is pretty straightforward. They require a university acceptance letter and the same documents that you had submit to apply to the university in the first place. But often, because of the crowd, there is a lot of immigration that is happening currently. You do not get enough slots, and visa processes can take anywhere between 3 months at the minimum to 6 months. So for me, the APS certificate, just to issue that certificate, took about 3 months, and only then could I apply for a visa. So in total, it came out to be somewhere close to 5 months for a visa. So uh, obviously, German universities recognize this and they're quite lenient about people joining late. But it is always ideal that if you have an acceptance letter, you should apply for the visa immediately.
Yeah, so that is a very important thing to keep in mind is to keep these timelines in mind and then apply as early as possible rather than delaying it. So one needs to plan a year ahead to know that these are the milestones or deadlines that are ahead of them. Um, and another barrier that students face is the language barrier. So I understand for the undergrads you have German as the medium of instruction, but for master's programs it's more universal and has English as a medium of instruction. How do international students navigate through this?
So oftentimes people are desperate to go to this very small town, do a degree from a university that's not so recognized. A lot of people face difficulties there because in smaller centers, you do not have such big international populations. But if you do your master's from a bigger city, you will have a lot of internationals to back you up, and English is not unheard of. But at the same time, your university is there to support you. For example, my university has an international office that provides German lessons. Many people who are doing a bachelor's in Germany, they do something called the language school, where they join their program, which is supposed to be 4 years, but they take five, where the first year of the university, they're only learning the language. So it always helps to know the language, and Europeans realize that this language barrier exists. So they're also pretty supportive of you learning their language.
Wonderful. And I remember you also mentioned in our discovery call that for the undergrads, even though the courses are delivered in German, but you do have tutorials that happen in English language. Tell us more about that.
So exactly. Basically, what often happens is there is a lecture where the professor comes and delivers the main contents, but this lecture is often flooded, and there are about 150 or 200 students taking this course. Uh, and then what happens is these bigger chunks are divided into smaller classes, which are known as tutorials. And in the tutorial, there is a PhD student who delves deeper into these concepts and clarifies all the doubts that students may have. And often what happens is out of these tutorial groups, two or one, depending on the strength of the course, is always taken in English. So for students who are not so comfortable with German as their first language, go to these courses so they can still understand and solve their doubts in English, even though the whole course might be in German. And as far as technical courses are concerned, a lot of this work happens in math. So if you're able to follow the math, it's not so hard to get your doubts solved in English. So you don't, as long as you're able to do the math, especially for science courses, language is less of a barrier.
Got it. Got it. And another barrier is the cost. Now, tell me
Mhm.
about like how much does it cost to study, like do a master's in Germany, and compare the private universities' fee versus the public system.
Yeah. So most public universities for almost 90% of the courses are completely free. What that means is you do not pay tuition. You only worry about living in the country, which basically means you only pay for health insurance, your rent, and food. This comes out to be about 1,000 euros a month. Uh, and it obviously for smaller cities, it's lesser, but at the higher end, it comes out to be 1,000 euros a month. Now, this cost, the government also realizes that many people are not able to afford this. So they have created something called the blocked account. So many students, if you are planning to study in Germany, what you have to do is you pay about 12,000 euros to the German government or to the blocked account agency, and they create an account for you, which is your fund. And as soon as you start your program in Germany, they pay 1,000 euros to you in your bank account every month. So this is like an upfront deposit that they take, and you can use this 1,000 euros per month in your time at Germany. There are other opportunities if you're this happens more for public universities. In private universities, you have a tuition fee which is can go as high as 6,000 euros a semester, which is 12,000 euros for the year, and as low as 1,000 euros a semester. So this is a range that one has to deal with in private universities. But again, this is way lesser than what you would typically pay for an American education, which would go as high as 50,000 or 60,000 dollars just in tuition fees.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Other than that, there are quite a lot of social opportunities for students that the German government provides. For example, there is something known as the Deutschland ticket. So this is a transport ticket that students only pay as of 2025 38 euros a month, and you can use any low speed train in Germany with that pass. So with 38 euros a month, I have been able to travel to almost every major city in Germany just with that ticket. So it's quite nice that transport is so subsidized for you. Almost every stationery shop or any tourist attraction that you would like to go to has basically no charges or minimal charges for students.
I remember when I was a student at Harvard, I also availed this facility of visiting so many museums in Boston free of cost just because I had that student ID.
Exactly.
But that city is not very student friendly, but it's good to see that the German government's taking care of these things for students. Clearly, going to a public university is better than going to a private university if one is to compare costs. How difficult is it to crack a public university as an international?
So it's again a myth that people think that it's very hard to get into public universities, but it really depends on the program you're applying for. There are specialized programs which only take 30 students, which become quite competitive. But if you look at, for example, the physics program in LMU, the acceptance rate tends to be upward of 40%, which means for every 100 applications, 40 of them get accepted, which is quite high when you look at other universities in the world. Like IITs have a 0.1% or lower acceptance rate. So 40% is definitely something way ahead in terms of acceptance rate. The other thing that often people don't realize is once you get into a university, you can always transfer to a different course. So Germany allows you that flexibility of taking courses from multiple disciplines in your first year, 2 credits for them. And only then you're allowed to transfer and perhaps also finish a master's in a different program than what you anticipated. So it's not like first you can't get in. You even if you get in, you can always shift your fields to a field that you thought you wouldn't be able to get into.
What are some common courses that students consider? Like they may say,
Mhm.
imagine, think that I want to study physics, but realize that it's too intensive for them and now they want to make a switch. So, I mean, what are some common courses you see your international friends pursuing there?
So Germany is well known for natural sciences. So physics, chemistry, biology, you will always find students doing. But often you also find students doing courses like epidemiology or public health, because these countries are also aging countries when it comes to their population. So they do need caregivers. They do need medical professionals. So there are a lot of medical universities that are turning their courses into more English friendly courses.
Interesting, very interesting observation. And so, once it's a 2 year master's that a student does, what are the job prospects or opportunities after one has completed these programs?
So often you start with your first year doing courses, and then in your second year, as far as physics is concerned, you do research. But there are two aspects. One is most courses have an internship requirement, which is paid for. And this internship can be done in something known as a working student, where any student, as long as they're enrolled in a German university, can apply for positions in private companies. And you start off as a working student. And once you're done with your working student time, it is very easy for companies, because they've invested a year or maybe 6 months in you, to convert that working student into a permanent job role. So many students start off working as a working student, then they convert that working student role into a thesis. So these companies like BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes also have research roles for which they require people to do theses. So you can do a master's thesis with a private company, and once you're done with this thesis, often they retain you as a employee. And all of these working student positions are paid for, and they're paid at 20 hours a week, with much more than what the minimum wage would pay. So ideally you would be able to cover your entire education journey just with your working student.
Oh, wonderful. And then what are like, say, potential designations at which students get hired? And if you have a sense of, broad salary packages that one can expect, like at least ranges or, different designations and profiles one can look at.
So by law, working student contracts cannot exceed more than 120 full days or 240 half days. So with that, you can make anywhere between 1,000 euros a month to about 1,500 or 1,600 euros a month on a working student contract. But this again varies from place to place, industry to industry. And a typical job would be anywhere between a data analyst job, where you would be analyzing some data, creating code for them from a physics point of view, or working in a research lab, creating samples, soldering things, making different products, all of that.
And what about it once this gets converted into a full-time opportunity?
So usually you end up at a junior position, and most like I can tell you from a Munich perspective that most entry level positions start at 50,000 euros a year. So you can expect anywhere from 50,000 euros a year as a starting package to as high as 75, depending on again the field you're going into.
Wonderful. And as a fresh graduate, that's I think a good pay scale
Mhm.
to add. Okay. And I mean, I think we've broadly covered most aspects of it. I mean, are there any challenges that you face sitting in Germany, personally, academically? Any words of wisdom there?
So you should definitely know that winter depression is real, and weather can get quite upsetting, and you have days of continuous rainfall and no sun. So that is something people should definitely look into. The other challenge is, it's great that you can make some international friends, but it is often hard to communicate with Germans as your friends, because they also have a bachelor's connection, and it's quite hard for them to interact with you. But it's always nice to make international friends, I think.
Yeah, building that social capital from scratch is never an easy task.
Exactly.
I'm reminded of my time in Boston again, where the first winter I didn't know what was going to hit me, although everyone had warned me about it. And I purchased this sun lamp, and I thought that would be a good substitute, but that's not the case.
Not-
And I was advised to have those vitamin D supplements because the sun doesn't come out, and you don't want your bones getting weak. So yeah, clearly a lot of those things one doesn't anticipate, but coming from a summer and tropical climate like India, it's pretty challenging to acclimatize to those seasons. But I think certain sacrifices one has to make to grow.
Yeah.
And in just closing words, if you were to go through this entire process again, would you have done
Mhm.
anything differently?
Yeah, definitely. If you're coming here or to any different country, do learn how to cook beforehand. So that's something I would recommend highly.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I would also advise students applying is to really take your deadline seriously. Keep an eye out for opportunities because it's the worst thing in the world when you know you are best fitted for an opportunity, but you missed a deadline. So just keep an eye out.
Be diligent, be ready to find yourself in uncomfortable zones because it's only outside your comfort zone where you grow. That's amazing piece of advice. And on that note, thank you, Spandan, for taking out your time and for sharing such wonderful insights. I think it's going to help students. And I wish you the best of luck for your own masters. And I hope
Thank you
good
so much.
things happen ahead.
Thank you so much for your time and having me here.
Perfect. Take care. I'm going